Hello, everybody out there in the internet world. Kure Kalnez, Kuronan Kitne. We're going live. You're listening to Politics on the Navajo Nation podcast series for the presidential and council delegate candidates. Welcome. Again, Kuroshi, we have a returning. This is going to be a second round for this candidate. And please keep in mind that I invited everybody to do a second round. And she chose to come back and do a second round. And so I'm going to do some random questions and things along that line. Excuse me. But before I go into that, let's kind of look at the politics. Again, one of the things that I think what has unearthed and has kind of shifted things back in our favor, the Navajo people, is because of social media, is because of the interviews that I've been doing. You're beginning to see, and we're beginning to unearth this huge network of families, huge network of alliances within the certain political dynasties. We're beginning to see that so-and-so in Shiprock or Eastern Agency is connected to Central, the Chinle, and somebody in Western is connected. So you've got this network going on. And even within these districts, one of the things that we're discovering are these family dynamics. The board. So nenda hicha nenegi kuroipa honitzi. To kadeba hono sinko ade anda yo netligi yegoban so case. To it oporniko deto dona nat ada. This is absolutely serious for the future of the Navajo Nation. We, the Navajo voters, we are not just going to sit here and take what's given to us. And I think there should be some sort of a vetting process for the president, the presidential candidates. I think 5 or 6 should be the limit. I suggested that we do what's called a pre-primary or agency runoffs. And that is that every agency, the Northern, Eastern, Chinle, Fort Defiance, and Western, they nominate whoever wants to run, and they run against each other until only one emerges. And then the same thing happens in all of the other. That way, every election year, we only come up with 5 instead of 17. We already know that this guy is qualified. He is articulate. He understands the Navajo Nation government, and it's like he's already been checklist. He's been vetted. He's been vetted at agency level. And right now, like in the old days, this is before the white man came. These chiefs, there was band leaders. They were selected not through this bullcrap that we're going through right now. Sani, Ade, Ahine Kaho, no, that's how they were selected. Right now, that's not happening. Okay, the deadline is such and such day, and all of a sudden these candidates randomly just throw their hats in there. I think there's a lot of qualified people that could have been selected by the people, and some of them say yes, Well, of course, there's no record of that. That's just coming from that candidate. So we don't know if that was really true or not. So we have 17 or 16 people on stage taking up space, and you can clearly see some of them should not even be there. Should not even be there. And there's a group of them that, should be, right there in the mix. Ako even na khoside holjish khodoit o nihe nakasala. Don't get your power taken away by a, step back and analyze every candidate, because it's so important. We're creating a new direction for the Navajo Nation. We are going to create a new direction. We're going to expect from our candidates, every candidates at every level, for them to be articulate so they can comprehend basic language. Auto knowing and living off the Navajo Nation. For me personally, I think everybody should have a basic understanding of business. And I'm going to do a couple of podcasts about the missing 24 million because I've got lots of information. So that's what I want to say. And I want to thank all of you for joining us right now. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Cornelia CARM Wagner. And she is running from her chapter. Welcome, Ms. Wagner. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah, Kudo shana ho agin sago iba hensen. I'm really glad to be here. I'm so happy that we have another chance to talk to each other. The community, Mr. Nez, through Mr. Nez, and I'm very fortunate and I'm very thankful for it.
Oh, Adon, if you could give us which chapters that you're running for.
Okay, nishlinige ya ashihin nishna. Ye idine bashishchin tanesani dashichekia ani dashinala kut sanin shlento a manchna. They city toho lia ade yisi na shakli ada tito. Ado the council delegate ya besh was besh bansa an ya for Bodaway Gap, Cameron, Coal Mine Canyon, Talani Lake, Loop, and Bird Springs. City tour. Those 6 chapters, ado council delegate Beishwal.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Ako, had on the Shnido le. Ako, le, it's a hislahosil, and auto, Hushtan, a she, a the Quigoshi form, the Tago, auto, the Ned, the Kakatanaho. Is there anything that you've learned and gained more information about your candidacy and how that you fit into the rest of your opponents? And can you just kind of update us on your campaign so far?
Yes, absolutely. It's been a very interesting journey. They, by the way, Gap the I had a very young audience, so I had this presentation that was prepared, and when we started the presentation, my audience was very, very young. So I had to tweak it really fast, but it was very good. We had a good time, and the Johnny came out very, very nice. Although I met a lot of people, it was good to meet all of you. ako by Henson, and then they like places like Coal Mine and Cameron. Um, they're they're only a few miles apart, not that far apart, but their communities are worlds of difference, which is very interesting, and I really appreciate that because you go from one setting to another setting and you're totally in a different like in a different world almost, and it's very interesting. I really enjoy traveling to these places and meeting people. I participated in one candidate forum that was in Cameron that was very, very well put together. I really enjoyed it. And Njoniye ako, Njoniko, I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot, and especially about the sacred places and the places that we need to protect from development and areas like that. I really, really, it really enriched my mind and the way I think about my outlook on things. So, yeah, by Jensen.
Yeah. Um, one of the things that always happens is that once you go to a new chapter or revisit a chapter, and as you're going through the forum, there's usually comments either before or after each forum or meet and greets. People just come up to you and they talk to you. They don't say this out publicly, but they say these things directly. What are one
Mhm.
of the most concerning to these people who have done this? What have you learned that your district and your chapters, how's that been for you? What's one of the, you know, top two or three, whatever, concerns that they have?
Um, the majority of the concerns that came to me, it's just very basic necessities that we still do not have, which I'm very disappointed in. Things like water, electricity, better roads, and the reason why I say I'm disappointed in it is because we got those ARPA funds, and that was for that reason, to extend water to homes, because one of the reasons that COVID ran rampant throughout our communities is because we had limited access to water and soap, and people were not washing their hands properly, or they didn't have water coming into their homes to wash their hands. Ebenina, the spread was very rampant. Okay, so the government saw that, and then there was multi-generational families living in one household. Okay, so that we can make improvements for our people, so that they can have a better quality of life. And that it doesn't seem like that's what happened. It doesn't, like the water extensions, no one's really talking about it. Electricity, I think some communities did get electricity in some areas. um, and then we know what happened to the Zenny homes, and so what happened to all that money? What happened to all those dollars that were supposed to have been allocated for these the needs of our people? And I just, it just boggles my mind, because those are still the same concerns that we had prior to COVID, and we still have that. Those are some of the things that our people are still asking for. And then another thing is that I really welcome, and I really became interested in, and started listening to a lot, is sacred sites, like the confluence and areas like that that the Lagana Chitahakao, they want to develop these sacred places that we have. That's where we pray and all that. The community is very involved in those sacred sites. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be part of that uh, effort to stop the government from making that into a park or whatever it is they want to do with it. Develop the area.
Oh, okay. The thing that is pretty common in these interviews is that you've got even in my area, I left a long time ago from my
Mm-hmm.
area. Ako, so far, I've been coming back here, and adequate no telephone. That's the only addition that I can physically see, and the same thing. What you just said, roads, infrastructure. Okay, why do you think that still exists in your chapter area, in your district?
Well, my district is I I think one of the main reasons, as with anything else, is the vast spaces. Like the homes are far apart. I mean, you can go for miles sometimes without seeing a home. Then all of a sudden somebody lives here, and I think that's one of the reasons. The water extensions is going to take a lot of money, and then like for places like Canyon Diablo, that place is a rock bed, and then you have to cross canyons. There's canyons between the homes that you have to cross to, but it's not impossible. It can be done, but it has to be it has to, a lot of effort has to go into it, and a lot of monies, of course, is going to have to go into it to take to get those things done. But there's other avenues that we can explore, like I don't know, instead of putting the water line in the ground, we could put it above ground. That might be doable. And so things like that I'm thinking about. But these people that live way out there, you can just tell that these families haul water, because when you're driving up to their homesteads, the first thing you see is a big truck with a huge water tank on the back, and these guys haul water. And we've been doing that for generations, hauling water. And the nature is not these council delegates from the past, they're running again, and the problems are still the same. Like when they first won the election, it's still the same. It was there then, and it's still there today. So it makes you wonder, what are you going to do this time that you didn't do back then? I know a lot of times, they just make it. I think a lot of times it's just a job to them. They just want another job, and they need an income, and that's the only reason they continue to run. But for me, I've never been elected to any kind of like chapter official or council delegate. This is going to be my first time, and there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about, like why didn't just like what I just said, we got the monies from ARPA, we had a lot of money. Why weren't these things addressed? These families, you see grandma and mom and the second generation, grandkids, those have not improved. It's still the same. And the actually the mobile homes because the I have a lot of questions about that, Mr. Nygren, President Nygren, is very proud that he brought these mobile homes, these trailers out for people to live in, which to me is a temporary fix. It's like putting a band-aid on a huge problem. From the get-go, from the ground up with a good foundation so that that home can be used for many, many years. But instead, he went with mobile homes. And he's saying that those mobile homes cost anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000. They don't look like it costs that much. No. I've seen mobile homes in the 250,000 range are double wides, and they're beautiful, and they have all kinds of, dungeonier. But the ones that I see that they brought out, they just look so plain and so. I hate to say that, but I guess it's a home, and it's somebody an answer to somebody's dream of owning a home, I guess. So I can't really put it down, but what I'm saying is we could have done better. We could have built a house with that amount of money and using local businesses. There's a lot of carpenters, construction workers on our reservation. We could have used those people to build these homes, and it didn't happen. And it's too late for that now, But I'm going back because to me it was a waste. We wasted so much money so much of that ARPA monies that we could have used for projects for families in need.
Yeah. Okay. Um, you know, let me just say something. This is a message to you and to every candidate at the presidential level and also at the council level. No doubt the Navajo Nation is a huge plot of land with flat areas, with up and downs, with canyons, with, places that are almost impossible to lay land or road, I mean. But you take every state across the United States, and one of them being West Virginia, it does have a mountain range. It does have its rivers. It has landscape that are, but it didn't stop anybody.
No, it
It didn't stop anybody. So what it's going to take, land is not going to develop itself.
Nope.
Land is only developed by man. Man or woman is going to be that leader that is going to be well in tuned with the needs. Even if you just put a really like a one highway, a stretch of highway that connects one community to the next, that's a start. But I don't think it's over. I don't think, ARPA is not going to be our only blessing. I think the Navajo Nation, so we need to continue to have hope. But then again, I'm going to ask you directly, how have the previous leaders in your area how do they do that? What was, you know, were they addressing those issues or not? Or do you know anything about that? Because you're from that area, you must know.
Well, they say they were, you know. Um, Alle sanda atlete jagaho. Aiba dahinti latindo water and electricity like right now drought not the hot no hashi the niche joba not the so it's the same thing every year. It seems like, you know, oh, this in these months, you know, like May, June, July, we're going to be faced with a drought. Let's get ready for that. Back over here in January, plan ahead and address it at the when this comes, you know. Instead, they wait until it actually happens. The ended the and that doesn't sit well with me. We need to learn to plan ahead. We need to learn every year we're faced with the same problems each year, but we don't seem to get it. We keep I don't know. Like for example, right now is summer. We should be planning for winter already. We should be planning for and the chapter house should be planning they should be hiring people to bring in firewood and storing it so that come winter they have like a stash ready to hand out. But that's not happening. That's not happening. Oh, you know, we need to get firewood for our elders at the I really I'm really appreciative about those wood banks that are popping up on our reservation where they uh, haul tons of wood out to certain areas, so somebody's house, and then that family distributes the wood to the to elders. I think that's helped a lot in the last couple of years or 3 years they've been doing that.
Okay, thank you. We we pretty much address chapter level new knowledge, or maybe something that you've already known but left out of your last interview. Now let's bring those together. Okay, you have a platform, and you talked about that.
Hmm.
And parts of the ones that you have talked about in your platform in your last interview.
Hmm.
If you're elected as Navajo Nation Council, as a member of the Navajo Nation Council delegate, and you for your area and your chapters, what specifically? How are you going to bring those problems into your platform and give us the solutions?
Okay. Just like I made an example of one of them. You know, like when the landscape is a rock bed, is that what's the possibility of running the water on top of the land instead of underground? So that's that was one example I made. But what needs to happen, I believe, is the community needs to come together and um, so I see we can't say that, you know, so and so needs this and things and um the families and the people who need the assistance, they need to come to the chapter meetings and help discuss and plan and find solutions for these problems that we have. Oh, listo, all the needs and all without into the case and that's not going to happen. Nobody is going to come to your rescue. You need to come out and start talking about what your problems are and coming to the chapter meetings and bring a chair to the table and discuss with us what you want us to do for you. Okay. That's the way I see it. O nahahodo nihto nikat o wasto si kesigi e ado beniyeta to me. I hear people say that to me, like somebody will come up to me and say, I hear you're running for council delegate. They say that. And here I don't even know who these people are sometimes. And then I start talking with them and and then I find out that, their road gets washed out on a regular basis or they don't have running water or anything like that. And I tell them, come to the chapter meeting, come over and let's discuss all these things. Without it on this or on the later no, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's kind of a real touchy thing, I think, because you know, um, in terms of governmental help, that's a whole nother topic that I have a pet peeve on. But in this case, one of the questions that I asked you was that you have a platform,
Mhm,
and you said that part of your platform is communication.
mhm.
Another part is going to be and so forth and so forth. And here's a road problem, and here is water problem. Here's electricity problems. It's just the basics. Let's say communication. How would you apply communication into the water line problem? Solving that issue. Let's talk about solutions. We know the
Mm,
problems.
well, we need to, what kind of, what what how much funds are actually available to improve water lines? Um, who's working on it? Who got the project? Jo Edelben from Window Rock to the chapter level. Maybe they do. Maybe they do um, disperse that information to the chapter, but the chapter is not communicating that with the community. So community they're just doing whatever about their daily lives, not knowing that these monies are available to help you haul water, or if you need a water extension, this is what you need to do. If and then maybe they do maybe the chapter does get the information and they just make a copy of the information and post it on the board and they expect the community to read it, but that doesn't happen. There's a real breakdown of communication like that. Or like those departments that are working on these water lines, like for example, NTUA or community development, they need to come out to the chapter houses and explain to the community um, uh, what kind of projects they're working on and how the community is going to benefit from their projects. That needs to happen, and that's not happening right now. It's not that information is not being distributed to the communities, and
Let's
there's a
talk about okay, that's great. We identify the problem. What are you going to do as a council delegate should you get elected to resolve that problem that you just described?
Okay. So as a council delegate, I would go directly to NTUA or CDC and ask them if they can come to my region, my chapters, and do presentations, and ask them if they can help with uh, applications, help with technical assistance, because a lot of times. When the information gets to the communities and the families, they don't know where to go to apply, or they don't know how to fill out the applications, what is needed, or they say, things like AI but on things like that they say. So I would like to see these departments um, come out to the communities and help the communities and actually do presentations to them, um, and do like an education on how what they're working on and what their projects are. I saw uh, I went to that DNR conference at Twin Arrows. It was what was it called? Um, the acronym was DNR. They were talking about all kinds of wonderful things, like what they're working on and what they're doing and what accomplishments they've done and all that. But there was so many people that there wasn't time to ask questions, or there was elderly in the audience that did not understand any of the things that were being talked about or discussed. And um, those kind of conferences are helpful to a certain point, but then there comes a time when you have to connect directly with the community, and there's a communication problem.
Um, one of the things I'm still looking for is that you talked about there's lack of communication between central council delegate and chapter, and then also the community. Let's talk more about that as far as your platform.
Okay. Um, Central government in Window Rock is just that they're over there. From the communities, a lot of like in my area, it takes at least 2 hours one way to get to Window Rock. And there's mass confusion, like that department moved to this place, or um and a lot of times you run into I don't know which way they moved to, or they're not here today, or it's just a lot of frustrating disconnect. And I personally experienced that when the few times that I did go to Window Rock to ask questions, and there was confusion about which holidays they observe. And you go to a department and that department is open, but then they tell you, oh, those guys are closed because they have a holiday. And you're like, what holiday? Is there a holiday today? So all this is confusing to the communities when you go visit Window Rock. And there needs to be clear communication. The phone numbers is another story. When you start calling them, nobody answers those phones, and there's no message on there saying today is July 17th, and we're closed today, but we'll be open tomorrow. nothing like that. All phones, all that deeds. And it's really hard to navigate Window Rock. Um, if it's difficult for me, imagine how it is for the elders and people that are new, like the young people that are coming back trying to find information in Window Rock. And there's a real there's no communication. When I was working for Indian Health Services, and I wasn't going to be in my office just one day, I was required to put a message on my phone saying, when I'll be out of the office and when I'll be back. And then I was required to post a calendar each month of where I will be and when I will be in my office from what time to what time. All that was written on my calendar and hanging on my door so that when people come in to see me, they know where I'm at. And my phone number was clearly written on there, how they can get a hold of me. My email was on there. And I don't see that in Window Rock. It's a real hindrance to people that are going to Window Rock to take care of business. And what needs to happen is, just like I said, I was required to inform my clients of my whereabouts, and Window Rock needs to do that. They need to put in information of where they will be and where they're going, when they'll be back, when they'll be available. All that needs to happen. Then all phones, all that needs. And I don't know if the directors, if that's a concern for them. I don't know if supervisors are sensitive to that kind of stuff. But that's part of customer service. You have to, when you're a public servant, you need to tell everybody where you're going to be, when you'll be back, and just convey that information if you're not going to be in the office. And right now, that's not happening.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. What other part of your platform do you want to also talk about?
I also want to talk about the part. I know that I've heard some candidates saying that is opens the door to nepotism and mismanagement of resources and all that, which is probably true. I don't disagree with that. But is a very important part of our culture. Um, it goes hand in hand with respect. It's itle. Oh, what's yeah. Bito ane what's sa case ko. You respect each other. Don't that there's a boundary that you don't cross. There's a line that you respect. But sometimes feelings get hurt. Sometimes people are it escalates really fast. And in today's world, I think we live in a world today that is more aggressive than it was when I was growing up. So so, but on the other hand, when you go into an office, you don't feel welcome sometimes, people ignore you. The workers there will ignore you. But if there was it wouldn't be like that. Yeah, like da haila banada kidon hilya inya halait ya haila nenzo kwa nakheni ya da jno dan da is kido ho hot hosen. But a lot of times that's not happening. It's just um oh, it's just really harsh, you know. There's no customer service, and it makes you wonder um, what the supervisors mandates are. Do they have supervisors? Who do they answer to? Have they gone to training for customer service? Because you're being ignored or the phones are all that it's just very frustrating sometimes. So hajo ya lo hosen to njonego ya njonego when there's and like I said before, you know, some candidates are saying it opens the door for nepotism and all that, which is probably true. I don't disagree with that.
Well, you know, that's a real interesting thing. But before we really get into the word, you're using that as your platform. Ako, today the platform, even that is what Ako, the nego. Are you saying that you're going to personally behave like that? You're going to, or are you going to enhance the action of in your community or throughout the Navajo Nation? What specifically do you mean? How is that going to be applied when you say it's part of your platform?
Well, it's not just clans. That is a big part of it, you know. Those border towns, a lot of them are learning their clans, you know, and they think that it is, but it doesn't stop there. Adult George Kidnai dan hit it ninde ya ajo gaso ya hake halong because you're gonna find another ashin somewhere or ado hotelin da sabik ijaga ko ado hake halle ya nine lila or shitzilin lila jino da hot ado there's a certain amount of respect right there. And jono go ya has don jono ado that person double ado jono I don't see that happening. Oh belagana jigut ya, you know, like they have friends and they form cliques and what that hitja and but could you that extends to everybody. It doesn't matter who that person is. I'm thinking of a clinical setting because that's where I come from, you know, like when we have patients that come in and sign in and adult like they ask you, you know, dish had like eye clinic and then right away you introduce yourself, you know, and during that time when you're walking there you introduce yourself even further, you know, you know, and they'll tell you until you take that patient to where they need to go and you let them, you know, you release them when you get there. When there's no ego, this is what I see now, you know, like say somebody comes in, they want to know where the eye clinic is. The person just says electrical. just go that way, follow that line, or around the corner and go out that door, whatever, And although the patient then feels like, oh gosh, I don't know where I'm going, and hopefully I'm not late, things like that. And it becomes awkward. Things are easy like that. You listen to each other, and you respect what the other person is saying. All that is right now we don't practice that. I don't see that now. There's a very limited use of right now to me.
Well, you bring up a very interesting point because maybe the best way for me to question to answer, or at least get closer to the answer, is by asking it in a question.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the question that I want to ask is this: do you think that two individuals can associate with each other without
Yes, that can happen in a professional setting and in a professional way. So, Shinlei, outside of the reservation, go lago tatesh in different hospitals, and there's no mention of plans. There's no mention of but you get along with everybody. And the way you do that is you respect each other's spaces. You don't violate someone's space without their permission. And you know what you have to do, and you carry out your responsibilities that is expected of you each and every day. And if you don't do that, you hear about it. So yes, you can work with people without using but you have to be very cordial about it, if you want to put it that way. Like, I hear some people saying, I'm not here to be anybody's friend. I'm just here to do my job. Well, fine, but you have to still be nice. You still got to be pleasant and respectful to your coworkers and to the people that come in for service.
So when we say uh, so it is possible that two people can coexist in a given place without
Right.
So having said that, now let's take it one step further. What I'm getting at is this: I don't think the person who said that causes nepotism, I think that person is just right out wrong, because they don't understand what is. Because
Mm-hmm.
what I just proved just now to you is I agree with you. Two
Mm-hmm.
people can coexist without Therefore, if two people can coexist in a workspace, then that doesn't apply. And so what applies is your job description and your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Coworkers, therefore, so what really would cause nepotism or favoritism? That's a question. Now, not to you, but I'll just overall to the listeners. So, in your opinion, is An action, or
Yes.
what is it to you?
I think I think it is an action because you have to put forth the effort to 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 express your like um yat shema or yat deja or yat janoda. That's an action. That's something that you're putting forth, and it takes effort to do that. Um, so yeah, is to me is an action word, and a lot of times, some the agent hospitals and then the whatever that who what their clans are or anything like that, but you know that this person is older than you, and then out of respect, you would address them as Shema or Shamasana. If they're very elderly. Um, yeah, oh yeah, though we don't practice that.
Hmm. Yeah. Jadida, I'm glad you're adding this to your platform because a lot of the people out there, with the I said about that what nisha. So jo since the year one so has case of that nedo yanda inda. Ako, I think the word is not just by itself. The
Hmm.
word would be something like Ketchins and go, Ebenacho go, Ek
Hmm.
echo. Now that puts a whole nother spin on it.
Hmm.
Just to say ke, it's got to be applied somehow. Therefore, it is an action, and I do agree with you on that.
Hmm.
Now, do you think that let's take the two words ke versus nepotism? Do you think they coexist?
That's a hard question. Um, jo eheki with long a I would not practice nepotism because it's already written in our policy that says nepotism is not allowed. So why would I hire, like, for example, my daughter or my uncle or my brother um to work in the same space with me if I was the supervisor, if I was the one in charge of um hiring, or um if I was the chapter official, if you want to put it that way. Jo a you have to adhere to your policies and procedures when it comes to nepotism. And though and then it's deceitful because you're you're hoping to hire a close relative, and you're hoping that anybody will not say anything about it. But it always comes to surface. It always comes to light that, yeah, I see for example, Mr. Nygren, when he hired his father-in-law to take care of his children, I'm sure he meant well. I'm sure, like, when you have small children like that, you don't trust anybody with them. You're the one that has to take that responsibility and take care of your children, because they can't tell you what's wrong, or they can't tell you if anything bad happened. They can't tell you that. So I think that's the reason why he hired his father-in-law to to tend to his children. But in the policy, it says, no, you can't do that. And the public did not take very well to it. He should not have done that. That was wrong. And even though he meant well, it was still wrong, because you have to look at how everyone else will perceive that, especially when you're in a high position like that. Community and to be honest with you, I really frown on chapter houses that are run by families, and then when you start messing with that. And they might not come out and tell you, they might not come out and say, they already know what's going on, and they're just like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want nothing to do with that. So they just don't show up.
Wow. So does that mean that these chapter officials or these chapter dynasty family, political families, so they select each other through caste?
I think they believe they are. That's really hard for me to answer. I don't have that mindset. Where I'm going to hire my own family. I'm going to hire my own daughter or uncle, or I've never done that in all the years that I've been in the workforce. I've never done that. So that question is really hard for me to answer. No, I don't know what they think when they do that. I don't know. They might think they're doing their kids a favor, or their families a favor, to hire them. But you know what? They're just giving them a hard time, like maybe they're not qualified for that job, and you hire them, your relative, and they're having a hard time doing the work, and then they get criticism from their coworkers, that so-and-so don't know what they're doing, and things like that. It just becomes very stressful, I think, after a while, especially when word gets out that, you're closely related to somebody that's working in close proximity with you. And the bottom line is, you're breaking the law. You're breaking the law. I don't know who you think you're doing a favor for, but you're breaking the law when you do that, when you practice nepotism. That's not to me.
So I think there's a difference between ke and nihike.
Mm-hmm.
They're very closely related.
True. However, nepotism is a real problem on our reservation.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I do totally agree with you. Now, put in the context of your candidacy as the Navajo Nation Council delegate. What are you going to do to address that?
One of the things that we need to do with all Navajo Nation employees, and I know this because I've worked for Navajo Nation, a lot of those people that work for the Navajo Nation, I don't care how many years they said they've worked there, they have no idea what is written in their personnel policies and procedures. They don't pick it up, and they don't read it. And you have to do it. You almost have to do it for them. I was a supervisor, and I had to make copies of the pages and during our staff meetings, we would go over it. And especially the leave part, the leave, asking for leave and sick leave and all that. I would copy it for them, and I would sit down with them and I would read it to them. This is what our policy says. Oh, you have to ask for leave X amount of time in advance, and all this. Either they don't want to understand it, or it just goes over their heads, or they're in denial or something. I don't know, but that because they continue to call in or call off at the most inconvenient times, and you tell them, you were here all day yesterday. You didn't say anything about being on leave today. I'm counting on you to be here today. We need you, but, I'm sorry, but I can't come in today, you know. It's not just the leave part, it's the whole personnel policies and procedures. They don't take the time to look at it. Where I'm coming from, when you start your work with a new organization, the first thing you do is you read their personnel policies and procedures, so you know what's happening and what's going on in that organization that you are now a part of. But apparently on the Navajo reservation, that is not a priority. And that's one of the first things I want to do, is work with HR and make sure that the employees are familiar with and they read their personnel policies and procedures. And if they have questions, they need to bring those up and up for discussion if they want to, and I think that's where we run into a lot of things, we're in election season. And I hear on social media, I read on social media that, certain candidates are using their staff to campaign for them and work at their booths and whatever. And the public is wondering, did they take leave for that? Or are they on the clock and they're getting paid to do this, And it's just, it causes a lot of discord and a lot of distrust. And that's the way I see it.
So that's how you would combine Ke and your candidacy.
Mm-hmm. We need to define what our roles are, our Ke roles, and Hajoo Chinil Ingo. We can't use it to get leverage, or we can't use it to take advantage of, like, maybe your boss is the same clan as you are, and and start taking advantage of your boss just because you're the same clan. No, it doesn't work like that. That's not you have crossed the line. Is itle, respect.
Okay. John, ako ara sa tsai here lana ko den hisado hono loro the second round. We're doing Navajo Nation Council delegate candidate, and this evening we have Cornelia CARM WAGONER, and she there's a lot of chapters she represents, so read it on the screen right there. That's who she's representing. She's talking, kind of covered, not kind of, she did cover communication and Ke, and talking about how she's making that parallel with her candidacy. Yeah. Whoops. Sorry. Know that you guys, thank you for being here with us. CARM. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was I would like for you to pick two of the previous topics that we talked about. So I'll just go down the list real quickly: economic development, veterans, 638 healthcare, 638 school, the Navajo Nation enterprises, and Navajo Nation owned ranches, and the problem between the president and the council, how to resolve that problem. If you could select two, and that will be our concluding, and then you'll go ahead and talk about your closing comments again. So, Ashbiga.
Oh, I would like to pick veterans. That's a subject that's very dear to my heart. And the other one I would like to talk about is either we kind of already talked about the discord between council and OPVP. You know, Hashim Sago, we already touched on that one. And I think maybe I would like to talk about the ranches. I'm not very knowledgeable about it. I'm learning about some of the ranches that Navajo Nation has bought and all that, but that's something that I would like to touch on. So those two, veterans and ranches.
Okay, the veterans. How do you define a veteran? Because one of the topics that's being talked about is that some people are saying veteran applies to everybody. What kind of veterans are we talking about?
Veterans that are who served in the military. Um, you heard everybody saying talking about veterans this, veterans that, and all that. And I'm sure the veterans they're tired of us talking about them, and they're not seeing any tangible outcomes. But the reason why I want to talk about veterans is because veterans is a big part of me growing up. Only abahoni inabahoni zido trahashin sako alebahosnizi. From that point on, I knew that my father was a veteran, and my mom, she always reminded us of that. Nije is loved so in le nasba nhisno yen hisna hazne. At first, I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was about. But as I got older, I would ask him questions. Shija haish oliya bitishno hashit oliya nsin ba jine. So one day he started telling me just bits and pieces. He didn't really like to talk about himself. I'm sorry, there's a train coming through. um, my my dad used to work on the railroad, and on the railroad the nashinsha ado drafishit iliano ado tatashiti laws shitile. He used to call it sedan le kwa ilo to ade na ki as twile na ki da I aja don le just tiba na shin na aja jin hisin da na ohdin na no ane ade hakoshito ni no ado ne tibasi katoles ne khatan thala shito ni no okut a draft shit ilia no anle na nishto ta shit it laws no ya hazna. And I had no clue what he was talking about. I had no idea where did you go and for what, and what's ya hazna. Ado as I got older, we learn in school, like that the United States went to war with so and so, and like Korean War. It was called the Cold War, and a lot of our people from here, they served in the Korean War. No, and my father was one of them. He served in the Korean War 7 years and 6 months. Ako Naziya. Ako ne dishkido doya yaskida ya. He didn't want to talk to me, or he didn't want to tell me, and I never heard him talk about it in public. It's one thing he never did. So it was very hard to talk to him about it. Ane one day and he shares this information with me, I guess when he feels like it. Nila, did you know that we come from a long line of veterans, Nila? And the Asian spouse, and I said, no, I don't know anything about that, but Wagoner, Nila. That came from great Nali. In the late 1800s, Calgary, no. And he drove a wagon, and he took supplies from one point A to point B. Ako biji itano. The neck biji halon. Adena o sponsor supplies na yo geso. Ako endaj nishi bilagana. Here comes the wagoner, the besnis and no. Janeno. Okut she biji baliago. Street no. So that's how I learned how we got our name, Wagoner. It came from the military. Okay, it's one thing to talk about veterans, I think it's different than when you actually have to live it. Because I lived with my father, and he had PTSD. And it was scary. It was scary for me when he had his episodes. One day, we came back from school. And he was nowhere. He wasn't around. And my brothers, my younger brothers, they went into their room. They came running back out. Something happened in our room. And so what happened was, I guess my dad went into their room. He was there by himself. And my little brothers had a poster of Bruce Lee in there. And just that photo triggered something in him. And he tore that room apart. You can even tell what was the bed and what was the dresser and which ones were the chairs. Then he destroyed that room. And we didn't understand what happened, but we knew that he must have had an episode. That's what I mean by it was scary to watch him go through his PTSDs. And there were times, you just feel helpless. You just feel like, there's nothing I can do, or what can I do? And I remember what I used to do was he would lay on his bed, and he would be shaking and making sounds, but not actual words. So I would bring in a cool washcloth, and I would put on his forehead or wipe him down his arms and talk to him and try to calm him down. But he would get out of it. He would get out of it. And I didn't, it was so scary. And we didn't even think about, let's take him to the hospital or let's go get him some help. Or then Asadi was nice. It was just me, my dad, and my younger brothers, and that's what we went through. And when you talk about veterans, that's what comes to my mind. It's a very hard subject for me. It's very emotional, and it's very it really touches your core on how these veterans, they suffer when they come back. And then and nobody really knows how to address their needs and their how to handle their situations. And you hear across the reservation, you hear about it, It's a lot so in Linlage Asati Bangan. Lashit Asatao. He's over there, but nobody really wants to associate with them. There's a lot of veterans living like that. They live by themselves. They live alone. I don't know if they choose to do that or they're isolated because they don't know how to convey their feelings or convey what's ailing them. Veterans. We can never, ever repay our veterans for the sacrifices that they've made. And they go at an early age. They're not the same. Then it's not the person that left from here is not the person that will come back. And especially if they're combat vets and they see things that they shouldn't see at that age, at a young age. And it's something, and then they carry that with them throughout their lives. They can't get rid of it. It's just one trigger away. It could be food. It could be a smell. It could be a sound. It could be a picture. It could be just somebody, even a language that they hear. It triggers that, takes them back to what they experienced. And I wish we had better services for them nearby. And in my area, we have to send our veterans to Prescott and Phoenix. They get health care there. Although they're not eligible for safe ride. I shouldn't say safe ride. I should say non-emergency transport. They pick up patients and take them to their appointments. Our veterans are not eligible for those services. And they have to make their way over there on their own. I think a lot of times they choose just not to go because there's no one to take them there to their appointments. Their needs are such that our Indian health services on the reservation, they don't have the level of care that they need, especially in this mental health department, and they just suffer silently. I saw that in my father, and I also saw that in my late husband. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he served 2 tours of Vietnam. And he told me that the reason why he re-enlisted for a second tour was because when he went home after he was discharged the first time, first of all, nobody picked him up. And the next thing is, when he tried to go home to his relatives, they would see him walking down the road, and they would shut their curtains and lock their doors, and they wouldn't let him in. And he had no place to go. He ended up drinking on the streets, and then he finally decided, when he sobered up, I'm just going back. So he went back to Vietnam. So we have veterans like that. They're not going to come forward and tell you, because I know, because my father was like that. Nobody's going to believe us. Nobody's going to tell us, that there's a problem. When you have a veteran in the home and you're close to that veteran like that, you live with him day in and day out, this is what you see. And I don't blame the Navajo Nation for not providing the services that they need, but they could have a hand in it. They could have a big hand in it. It's the government that should be taking care of our veterans indiscriminately. They should be taking care of our veterans like the veterans they take care of, say, like in Los Angeles or New York or big cities. Veterans. They have veterans homes and veterans health care. We don't have that here. And I think it's time that the government stepped up and take care of our veterans like the way they take care of all the other veterans around the world. And Diego, indahastigi Diego, although if we know of a veteran that needs help, we need to step up and help them. This is really, really sad, and I don't want to name names, but just recently, within the last 3 years maybe, I started helping a veteran who lived in a hogan. His hogan was so old and so in bad shape that he had a rope going from the front door all the way around the hogan, and it was tied up. And that was to keep the walls up. And he lived there. It let the elements in, like, but he lived there. That was his home. And I started helping him with his housing application. 30 years. Our president president nobody's helped me, no. So I started helping him. And we went through so much. the director is Bobby Baldwin, and she was not happy that I was really pushing for this veteran. And they would tell him, "Ani dayan tie." We have to hear it from him. Dano. He was hard of hearing, and he kind of had trouble speaking by this time because he was up in his years. They didn't want to talk to me. He would tell me what his concern is, but I couldn't convey it for him because they wanted to talk to him directly. But he couldn't hear, and he couldn't really talk very well. So they would tell him, next week or 2 weeks, or we'll call you again. Ishta phone those phone calls never came. He would come over and he would wait for hours for those phone calls from Navajo VA, and they never came. The calls never came. And although I really pushed for his housing, and one day he said, "Materials shahni kino." He was so happy. Materials shahni kino shagan shadne shagan shabadat dejnishlano. We were so happy for him. In fact, we went over there to look at it, to see, what he got and all that. And I told him, "CORNELIA, a barbecue that we're going to have a barbecue. We're going to invite everybody with the shnohashi." And the sad ending to that is he died before the house was completed. So he never lived in it. And this is the scenario that we have on the Navajo reservation, according to where the veteran is concerned. That needs to change. We need to put somebody in charge of our veterans that has compassion and that knows how to work with veterans and knows what their needs are. We don't have that right now. And that's a big, big concern for me. They're not just elderly veterans. We have a lot of young veterans that are in that same boat and living with family members. They're homeless. And some of them are disabled. Some of them are just in the border towns, existing and not really living their lives, the freedom that they help win. And that's the information I wanted to share. And my father was no different. He was trying to get a house after we lost our mom. We lost our mom at a young age, and we were overcrowded. There was 13 of us. So he was trying to get a better home for us. And I was living in Phoenix at the time. I really need to get a better house for us. So I called the Senate over there, and I spoke to Senator Henderson. I don't remember his first name, but he was in charge of Native or Navajo area veterans. And he had a lot of influence. So I made an appointment with him for my dad. And I told my dad, I said, "Dad, you need to come up and we need to visit this guy." Veterans, he's a senator, additional. So I know 5 minutes we waited like 40 minutes to get for that 5-minute visit. Yat Ehnoashi. He was really nice. The senator was really nice. Na ilabin yeah. Shania but only my dad. And then he told his story. I lost my wife. I have this many kids. I need a better home and all that. Ne um the senator said, you the ne you're not the only one. Thousands of when they your kid. What makes you different but only my dad? Ado di kwa na so sin ya in liki e ya peso gi you and ila railroad bahnan sin shlako. Peso o you and ila but only my dad. The senator was done talking and it was my dad's turn to talk. I could see his mood changing. I could see a frustration that was building in him. And he stood up. And I was so nervous and kind of scared because I didn't know what he was going to do or say. And he said, when the United States took me from work, laws, no. Nobody questioned me about my income, nila. Oh, yun si ilan ne. Ne eto tadoles ado shito nita. You gonna answer the call shito nita. Ado to tadin nita. I gave it my best effort. Ado to tadin nita okay yeah. And I served my country honorably. I was honorably discharged. Isnila. Ko kuta hut Kuta nahalchishte edit din shke don sindande. But this is the predicament that I'm in, and that's why I'm here, Badoni. Although the senator just told us that your time is up. I don't think it's take on us. So yeah, is there anything else, Bishnila? And then and my dad also had my brother who served in the Marines. They don't have applications source. So although we left, and that was the size of it. So we left. Although my dad, he drove home. I went back. I was living in Phoenix. He was living in Wickenburg at the time. And on there about a couple of months later, and then he called and he said, you know what? VA that supplies in Daisy, they're gonna build me a house now. He was so happy. He was so happy that he was being assisted. My point is, why do they have to go through all that just to get what they've already earned? Why can't we make it easier for them? You veterans, you you're at the bottom of the. Why is that a problem? We should be proud of the fact that we have so many veterans here on the Navajo reservation. Why are we looking at it as a problem? So I want to explore those, and I want to help as a council delegate. I want to bring real insight to what our veterans are facing today, because I'm not happy with the services that they're getting, and I'm not happy with the way we treat our veterans. And all you know, I don't know what the problem is, but we need to make them feel welcome, and we need to make them feel like they're important and they're special, because obviously we're here enjoying our lives because they want that freedom for us. With Alban's case.
你说呢? That's very powerful. Very, very powerful. I think it takes, it's going to take people who truly have an insight, a very deep understanding of the issues. Like in your case, I mean, that was your father. I mean, that was just, I mean, you can't get any more closer to a veteran than that. And I think it goes back to how many, like who's ultimately responsible. It is frustrating to know that, just like your father said, shade aro nashid ekid at all you're drafted. Basically, that was what he was told, and he did his time, and the same should be in return. That just makes sense. But here's speaking about what's going on with the Navajo Nation elections right now. I'm going to tell you one thing. Yes, the veterans on Linigi. There's two different types of veterans. There's a drafted veteran, and then there is an elected veteran or enlisted veteran. There's a difference between those two. The drafted, they had no choice. They had to serve. Enlisted, they chose to enlist. So you got two different types of veterans. But in no case, they're a veteran. But in all case, one of the ones that I know, one thing I know is that they don't like to talk about it. They don't run around saying, I'm a veteran, so it's a quiet courage. And they're very respectful, and like whatever it is and why that they live that way, it is who they are. Therefore, they're not going to stand there on the front lines on the Navajo Nation begging for help. They've got that much pride. You know, they're very, very, you know, very focused. They don't go out there and say, I am less than because I don't have this. They just accept what they are. It's unfortunate, but that doesn't excuse the elected leaders. I'm glad that you said that you were going to address with his real deep compassions for the election, for the veterans. You know, that's absolutely, you know, beautiful. So the last thing that you mentioned, and let's talk about this just real briefly, and then we'll have your closing comments. So, and that's the ranches.
The ranches. I think the intent was good. I don't, you know, like, she along those lines, she that's about the wins, what she that's about peso. Our monies, Navajo people, the nani tlinigin peso shows in his census number, even if we're not registered voter. The nani tlinigi in peso shows ego. Kaya not the hazni. Oko. Dishji the aya, Nihichibahoche. I'm just going to use Boquillas Ranch as an example. O Aja Ranch na hazni do Aja kun tela has a the nebikeyak at o hat no banahadisti. I kind of I spent some summers out in Seligman because my uncle shima but brother go Bobby Yazi with the end he worked for the railroad too. A apagan le Seligman de. In the summertime, sometimes I used to go out there and stay with them. And we had summer jobs out there, you know. So that's my connection to Seligman. And ako what about now this the big Bokis ranch with the Banahas ni hit the say ya out about this the Nebanahas ni no. But over the years, I started to realize that who lives there? Like I said, I grew up in Winona and I went to school in Flagstaff. We lived in Flagstaff for a very long time. And the possibility of moving to Big Boquillas Ranch was something that I would think about. Who gets to live over there and who gets to use that land, you know? And those questions were never answered. But I found out that certain people, they were allowed to use Big Boquillas Ranch to graze their animals. And you know, my father was a rancher. He raised Herefords, Bebekashi Danjoni, and Oko. You know, I would question that. When can we take our herd over there? You know, that kind of stuff. But we never did. And it just seemed like it was a select group of people. Hashidat, Eshin, Dahijat, Nini, Jo eight Ehidats, eight Yapadas, Bahot to take their cattle over there. But we never got a chance. We never got that opportunity. And we did ask about it. And we were told that we had to submit an application and this and that. And we did try to do that, but nothing ever became of it. We were never selected. So it'd be interesting who uses that, who uses those ranches. I'm sure they have a record of it. And those records should be public. It shouldn't be hidden. We need to see who do they pay to graze over there? You know, those kind of questions too. So AO Bonsa's case, and if we don't use it, if the general population of the Navajo Nation is not benefiting from it, why do we keep it? And how much money is it costing the Navajo Nation to keep those lands? And especially if no one is using it. So those are some of the questions I have, and those are some of the things that I would like to look into and bring answers to our people, because the Nedline they ask about those ranches and those lands. What was the purpose for it, you know? That kind of stuff. So that's why I have an interest in it. To my understanding, Navajo Nation has purchased like 8 different areas. Some are ranches, in various parts of near the reservation. So I always wanted to know how we, the general public of the Navajo Nation, can access those lands and how we can use them, or if we can do that, is that allowed? And what are the rules and regulations surrounding these ranches? So those are some of the questions that I have, and I would like to address those. And halit iya okut kaya chitang indo. Where are they located? How big are they, and all that? There's some in Eastern Agency ranches, Waliela, and then there's one near Winslow called Winslow Track, Peaks Ranch, and then Big Boquillas Ranch, the one I was talking about, that's near Seligman.
Yes. So my question was, who can use the ranch? Because right now it seems like only a select group of people, mainly council delegates, are allowed to use the ranch to graze their animals. And I'm wondering if there's a fee. Are they charged a fee to graze their animals over there, or how is it set up, and who is it set up for? Because I know that Big Boquillas Ranch is well known for its wildlife habitat, and especially their world-class trophy elk. Are we allowed to hunt there for elk? Ada, those kind of questions come to mind. And what is it being used for? The last I heard is they were trying to commercialize some of the acreage, and they're trying to use it for green energy, and they're exploring like feasibility of large corporations, large scale, what do you call those, wind generators. And that, I don't know about that. That would be a waste to me. It's a beautiful place, and wind generators would just ruin that landscape. So it's a very large place, and I'm just wondering why we're not using it like to its fullest. And there are no plans in place for it. I don't know. And these are things that I would like to know about, and how we're using that ranch, and what was the intent.
So, yeah. Right now, I think one of the things that's pretty certain is that one of the things that's for sure is that these ranches is definitely a deficit. There might be a few that might be just breaking even, but the question still remains: Are the Indian a crochet corn the bunsen tea tani? I'm glad that you have concern as well. But what would be some of the alternatives as far as what you can see?
Well,
Like I said, Big Boquillas Ranch is a beautiful place, and I would sure hate for us to lose it. But the flip side of that is we need to use it. We need to use it for for its intended purpose, even if it's just for ranching, and open it to all ranchers, not just a select few. And we're not allowed to be in there. We're not allowed to use the place, you know. I would like to see developments in there, like motels and meeting places, and you know, have it give it a chance to generate some monies. And
What about what
there's
about
other
even a
there's other
I mean,
places that the Navajo Nation purchased too, earlier. But Big Boquis Ranch is the one that I'm very interested in, because we've had that one the longest, since 1987, I believe. And it's a huge place. It's like over 700,000 acres. And we really need to do something with it, so that it's not burying us in debt.
yeah, thank you very much. One of the things that I'm going to do is, yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of opportunities there, but it shouldn't just go to the elites. Um, I think it would also be very beneficial. I think it'd be really cool if, like, Big Bow, Wolf Springs, these are like epic land pieces. Would it be great to have a resort up there?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
like a big Airbnb meeting rooms for somewhere the
Right,
Navajo Nation can decompress, maybe having a veterans health facility up there that they can recoup and come home, and those sorts of things. I mean, something that the Navajo people can use. Ranching,
right.
there's an opportunity there. So, but yeah, anyway, so yeah, Lana, and the last question of CARM, give us the reason why you're running, why you as a candidate. This will be the closing comment. Give us the reason why that your constituents should elect you, and why you feel like that you're the candidate to fill that seat. Because as I look at your resume, you are highly educated. You have experience uh, within the government, and so anyway, tell us all of that. I think that's important.
Okay. Here kwadao tan hisenol tsa kwa en hinal ihis na huil no kun sa hol jish. Ano tsida agade en tsako kwado ban sas kesigi en hi shitne nihil keda hon shit inigi do di kon de nebi ke ya baka ike honit inigi adon le naka alchinen le da altka ike en da kai. Dre ban sas kes. Haleit augo. Yat eho patahuinit les ado pinta itloy ado yoch it pe ta athahe ado ta hijahe hajoye jo nat ani jilon shi shi sazido nat ani jilon with the ne with linsa ano pansitsi kestit alen liat egi betahadolelton nijana go betahojon ketahat idole joshe hut ansas kes hut an hansas kes do hut eya um shin linla do I don't want us to just quit just that with a bit or they need nisto they need nisto they need nisto that a day bani. We need to enjoy ourselves, enjoy life. nihil tahuljon dolel to teitlo dolel bahuljoniki adole bahuljoniki nihil hollon dolel nihil hojitli dolel shiot an habansas case oko nat ani sato hashin sago yebe daholni oko I want to help you. I want to make things better for you. Yat eho nasone niji ikatole. Not just right now. Dish edo banished in the discount do benched in le quote. Nes na din shlatina hete jo aden tike so yat Nakalchinedo banada alchinigido banada alchinigi ada bansike so yat Ada hol jeshodatse atin hikeya that's a halodo leh. Akoda de akoda ba bashed that the need now big heta hoil na oko adon ni so dohon sike so odi ati has anid a peso the open de now tre nast ato to yat ho ya nihas ado leh. Ako shisazido she hot nakansas case, hot nakabansas case. I want everybody to have a good life. I want everybody to enjoy life. Of course, they don't see, she got they don't see. CARM Wagoner, Cornelia CARM Wagoner, position 1, zita seta sata, aquasha nanda also. Ako nanish etadilni, hashtadilni. Sa dilnil to njono ko ya naso na itso kedon hinali keda njono ko ya past adadni past adaddi ni shehut amansas case. Oko I'm asking for your vote. Asking you to support me. Let's think about the future. Let's think 20, 40, 50 years ahead and think of ways permanent ways to preserve our language. And the only way to do that is to speak it. Even if you don't pronounce it the right way, and even if it's hard for you, you have to practice it. You got to train your tongue to pronounce those words. Once you do that, everything comes together for you. And then pretty soon you speak it with confidence. Ako. She would an habansas case, do nas on it, yat eho katole, had she njunugo kehonit idole. She jende quachuno, she just sende nle dan higande. We have a bridge that allows us to come across the little Colorado River to Winslow. That bridge quite neho, which no has see. They don't hear that it either. Dile nas the Heshin hit so kedon hinalike. Dan na nishite yost quae nan hakao na nishota hit the catole. Nihedo that it either, and how true that was. And at you they work in town, they get on the freeway to get to work, and all they have to do is jump across the river right there at that bridge and come here to earn a living. Not just today, not just next month or next year. So our decisions that we make should it's going to reflect and impact our future. Of course, District 4, Nesiki, Botaway Gap, Cameron, Coal Mine Canyon, Loop, Talani Lake, and Bird Springs. Cornelia CARM Wagoner.
All right, there you have it, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, thank you, CARM, or actually Cornelia CARM Wagoner. And good luck. And we will talk to you on another side. and have a wonderful and good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you.
So, hagonan.